Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today is Monday, June 27th, 2022. I am Solid Blue Sister, and this is My Turn to Talk. Hey, group, welcome. You're number one. Frankie, you are. You're number two. Sorry. Oh boy, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Wonderful day. It is hot here in Southern California. And to anyone joining us over on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, welcome. And welcome, Lisa Ann. Welcome. Your first time here. Welcome. Okay, let's get started. Everyone else will trickle in as always. Let's see. Power Girl, welcome. Brina, welcome back. Okay, so today I want to talk about mentally ill. Are people aware they need help? When a person obsesses over someone or something, are they mentally ill? If a person changes their appearance or name to gain admittance to consistently be around someone, is it mental illness? Welcome, Feisty One, or welcome back, Feisty One. If a person is in love with someone they don't have access to and creates a fantasy in their mind, are they mentally ill? What will be the trigger to make someone violently snap? Now, that has been, those are my questions. But I wanted to talk a little bit about mental illness. Welcome, Ninja Bunny. And I know that, we've been, last couple of shows, mental illness has come up because of the shootings and everything. And, we've been not necessarily specifically talking about that, but, mental illness just seems to be in the news. And I just want to know from your perspective, how people get from A to Z. How do you start off as a quote unquote normal person? I mean, because are any of us really normal or sane, to someone who snaps, to someone who for whatever reason they either lose touch with reality, or someone pisses them off to a point where they have to pick up a baseball bat or sock them in the nose, or pick up a gun. No problem, Grid. No problem. Glad you're listening. And Brina, thank you very much. Okay, you're saying I don't think people realize they need help, and but Ninja, how does it get to that point? I mean, if you're someone who, for whatever reason, you create this fantasy in your head. I'm just using this as an example. You create this fantasy in your head that, you're best friends with someone, or, you're in love with this person, and the other person just has no clue as to what you're talking about. Then one day you see that person that you're in love with, and you think that you all have this relationship. You may have pictures of this person, posted up, or you just have these fantasies, and one day you see that person was someone else. how do you get to the point where you snap? I mean, do people like that, when you say people may not know they need help, but again, how do you get from A to Z? What about people who obsess over people? Um, where you can obsess in a good way, and you can obsess in a bad way. You can obsess over someone that is not even doing anything to you, or they don't even know you're alive, but you're obsessing over them to the point where, if that person that you're obsessing over is not doing what you want them to do or behave the way you want them to do, you start lashing out in negative ways. How did it get to the point where, you know we were talking about this the other day, where someone can just dislike their boss so much, or the boss says just one thing, next thing you know, they went home for lunch, came back with a gun. So, are those mentally ill people, or are those people who have just, or who are just fed up? Is that person who obsesses over someone, is that just someone who wants attention, or did they really snap? I mean, where does mental illness, where is mental illness truly mental illness, or are people who are just crazy? So those are some of my questions. Anybody have any suggestions? Petty Deb, welcome. Um, because I see, Brina says, agree with Ninja Money. I don't think people realize right off. Okay, but if welcome, Mr. A. So if you don't realize that you need help, when you're grabbing that gun or that baseball bat to do someone harm, are you that far gone that you're just that far gone, and even needing or realizing anything, it doesn't matter, because you're focused on doing one thing, and that is to do someone else harm? So again, what's the difference between someone who is mentally ill and someone who is just crazy? And I know it sounds silly for me to say mentally ill or just crazy, but I believe that there are some people who are mentally ill who have gotten there over time, meaning, if they're in an abusive relationship, and they just get to the point where they are just so stressed out, whatever, that something just snaps, that last beating is the one that did it. That last beating that they took from either a husband, or a wife, or a child, um, could either send them to the mental ward because they need help, because they're stressed out that way, or they can send them to their bedside table to pick up that gun to settle the issue another way. So is there a difference between crazy and mentally ill? Because I see crazy people as people who make up these things in their head, and they obsess over people. You know, um, they they stalk people. They do things to hurt other people when the other person doesn't even know what the hell is. They don't even know that they're doing this, or even why. They create something in their mind. I think those people are crazy. But mentally ill people, I think that they got there through levels, that this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and then all of a sudden it's like, I just can't take this anymore. Um, okay, Brina says, yeah, the bar is low unless you get a voice of reason. Okay. Um, okay. But you're saying, or a parent. I don't, I'm sorry. which one are you talking about? Are you saying, or a parent loses it and they just go crazy, or we actually agree? You actually agree with me on something? Wow. So I mean, because oh, about a beating. Yeah, I mean, it's like what is the catalyst that puts you into mental illness land? Because again, oh, it was a spanking joke. Oh, because I spanked my child. Okay, all right, all right. You know, um, you know, what put you into mental illness land? Because I do not think that everyone who goes off and shoots a bunch of people, I don't think they're necessarily, and I'm saying necessarily, mentally ill. I don't think they're necessarily crazy. I think that some people are just hateful. I think you just have people out there who are just plain hateful, and for whatever reason, they're shooting people, or you know, um, um, you know, and I know this is gross, but you go to a restaurant, and the person who's cooking, they spit in your food, just things like that. I think those people are just hateful. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you guys think that there's a difference between hateful people who go out and do bad things to others, as opposed to mentally ill people who go out and do things to others, or just crazy people who do things to other people? Because we do have a lot of crazies that are out there. And nowadays, you don't know who is and who isn't. You don't have to wear a t-shirt, or carry a flag, or have a movement to be crazy. I mean, the person in front of you who's checking out at Target could look completely sane. Then all of a sudden, the cashier doesn't give them the right change, or the cashier, says something they don't like, and he's yelling and screaming, or she's yelling and screaming, and either wanting to beat up the cashier, or worse yet, they're pulling out a gun. I mean, what makes people get upset over a card game? You lost. Or over food. It's like, I was going to take the last piece of this, or I want this, or this was mine. I put this, in the fridge, and somebody ate it, and then somebody just goes crazy. So what is that trigger? Bob, welcome. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
You are very, very faint.
Yeah, I thought as much. I'll swap over to my other headset. Give
Okay.
me
So while we're waiting for Ba, because he is going to call back in. Okay, Brina says ego messes up the fun. You know what? You're right. You're right. Ego does mess up the fun. I mean, you could have having fun with someone, and ego. Somebody's ego will come into play, and I mean, even if it's something as starting an argument. I mean, how many of us have been around people, or we probably even done it ourselves, where we just go off on something, and people are like, well, where did that come from? What is that trigger for some people? Welcome, the only crazy lady. What is that trigger for some of us? And for some of us, you know using Rena's wording with the bar is really low. I mean, the bar is low for some people, where anything can trigger you. You know, um, and again, for some of us, you having access to someone that they want access to, or that they like, and they don't have access. I mean, it's people are just crazy. You know, stalking, and I mean, it's just, to me, someone always has that trigger, and those are always the people that you need to be wary of. Okay, Bob, you want to try it again? No, I don't hear you at all. Okay, he ended again, so he'll call back in again. Okay. So, yeah, so guys, I mean, do you think that I'm wrong, or do you think that I'm stretching, or do you think that mentally ill people, crazy stalkers, whatever, that they're all in the same group?
Hello, is that better?
Yes, 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 your normal voice. Welcome, welcome.
Um, this is an interesting topic because I've never actually thought about this one. How do we define how is a mentally ill person like diagnosed? Um, and it's funny as well because when I came home tonight, the wife was actually watching The Joker, the one with is it Joaquin Phoenix, which is all about mental health. So, but
Okay. Now, well,
I don't.
before you go on, I just want to read what Brina says. Brina says, no, some people just have a more detailed story in their mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I wonder if it's all about like how tightly wound someone is because like yeah, I think you mentioned earlier about someone's cracking point or melting point, whatever it is, like something that just
That
makes
makes them
them
snap.
flip. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean they're mentally ill, because then I think more people would be diagnosed with mentally illness or whatever it's called. And I don't think that, and I think that is probably the case with a lot of these shooters, these people that shoot up school or go and kill people. It's not that they're mentally ill; they've maybe just flipped a switch. They've had enough. They've dealt with stress for a long time, and their threshold has just blown over. And I maybe sound as if I'm feeling sorry for some of them. That's not the case because we all, sometimes I look back at my life, I've had to deal with a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, a lot of things that, you know, we shouldn't have to deal with. And I sometimes look back and think it's a wonder that I didn't turn to drugs or drink or alcohol, um, and a lot of people have said that to me as well. So it's all about your levels and how well you can handle it. But in regards to actually being mentally ill, I just assume you see films like The Joker and people that are probably in a straitjacket and can't be left to their own devices. That's a different level altogether. And I just wonder how you determine that. Like maybe I don't know how this is done by obviously psychiatric professionals.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know.
but usually if someone has a mental illness, is usually diagnosed by a doctor. But I'm not a doctor. I mean, I don't. I mean, I don't know. But would you say that, because see, I don't think that everyone who goes and shoots people are mentally ill. I think some of those people are just mean, that they're just hateful,
Yeah,
and I think you're giving them a pass if you say that they're mentally ill. But then again, there are some people who are mentally ill. So let me
yeah,
ask this: do you think people who obsess over other people, or who build things up in their mind to think, this image or this fantasy of a relationship or something that isn't there, and then
mhm,
they see this person, um what would be the trigger point? What would make that person snap? I mean, are they mentally
uh-huh,
ill, or are they just crazy?
yeah. This is something I could speak to a little bit better, even though I'm not the best at putting this into words. But I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but I think the way we are in our childhood and how we're brought up affects how we are as adults. And if there's a person, if there's a person like that obsessing over another person, I believe that there's something in their childhood that's made them be that way. Like, for instance, if you get into a relationship and you're a very jealous type, I believe that's because of something that's happened in your childhood. So I also think the same with that type of relationship as well, where people obsess and stalk and um, they're mean, and it's just because they see that as the norm, and it's not that they're maybe mentally ill. Because I also think what I was going to say is there are people who play on that, like I'm sure to the extreme measures of committing a crime, and then they're told they can play the mental health card and get their sentence reduced. And I think we're also as a society, we're too quick to get onto medications. Like I believe, I'm not trying to go off topic, but there's a lot of kids out there being diagnosed with ADHD,
Hmm.
and I think that's just a cop out. I think there are cases of where parents can't handle their children, and they're not, because they are not good parents, and they are taking their kids to the doctors trying to get them subdued, basically, just because they can't handle them. And I know that sounds mean, but there are people like that, and then there's also parents who are trying, and their kids are just too boisterous, and it's not that they have ADHD, but they're being put on medication. It's definitely a real problem.
I will agree with you on the medication thing because when I was growing up, ADHD and all this other stuff was not even, I mean, it was like, what?
Yeah.
All these acronyms were not out there, PTS and, all this other stuff. It just wasn't there. And I do believe that there is a connection between all this medication that, people are on, either children or even adults. I do believe that we are an over medicated society, and America is definitely an over medicated society. However, for the parents who can't handle their children, um, you know, you know, I only had one, and even though my son was not a bad child, but he was still a handful, and and sometimes it was hard. So when you have more, you know, again, 1, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, parenting is hard. And if you have a child that, for whatever reason, they just won't listen, and I guess, you know, this may go into the spanking thing again, but when you have a child that just won't listen, or you have a teenager, that is acting out, whatever, and you just cannot get through to them, is it truly the parents' fault? Because there's just so much going on now. There's just so much going on, and trying to just figure out and navigate um, what is going on. I mean, yes, it's the parents' fault, but at the same time, parents do a lot. They do a
Mhm.
lot. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it does have to do with over medication. And when they do take their kids to the doctor, the first thing the doctor will say is, "Oh, your kid has ADHD." When maybe it's just the fact that, is your kid cooped up in the house all the time? Maybe they just need to get out.
Mhm.
And I don't want to
I,
compare a child to a dog, but
mhm.
I have three. And I listen to some of my neighbors, their dogs bark consistently and constantly, and they never walk them. And it's not the dog is just barking all the time. The dog is freaking bored. They want to get out. They want to do things. So with children or even with adults, is it the fact that maybe you just need to get out and expand your mind, or do something?
Mhm.
So if I make sense, I was trying to make sense. I was trying to tie things up there. So
No, no, yeah. I do come across a lot, not just on your show, but I do often, when I'm talking to people, I do sound as if I hate on parents a lot, and I'm beating down on them. But I do strongly believe that the big reason that society is such a mess, a huge reason, is the lack of good parents in the world today. I'm not. It's not all their fault either. And even if there are bad parents out there, it's not that I would think they're mean people. They've probably seen it when they were kids, and it's been passed down through generations. But the way the world is now, like we've mentioned a lot on your show, We've had topics where like the single parents, or the fact that two parents need to now go out and work, and bringing another human being into the world is not such a big deal as it was back then. People are popping out kids as much as they want, and they're also popping them out at 15, 16, 17 now, and thinking, oh, let's just, all I want to be is a mum. And then I know it's a hard job, but and it does sound like I'm hating on them, but a huge reason why society and why people end up growing up with issues is because they weren't loved as kids. Like I'm sure you've heard and you've seen in movies with women with daddy issues and men with, like nobody hugs it. Like I don't hug because I was never hugged as a kid. It's like things like that that you that does stay with you. That is a real thing. So what you see in your childhood, you grow up to then parrot in your relationships with your significant other, and that is bigger than anyone can imagine. I think it gets, maybe when I talk, people are sitting thinking, oh, it's just a tiny little part, but it's not. It's really huge. It's the the
Subliminal.
subconscious is it,
Yeah.
well,
The
subliminal and
subliminal. Yeah.
subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are a huge part of every decision that we make, and that's why I harp on a lot about the media, is because you're taking it in through your subconscious, and then in real life when you're consciously making decisions, your subconscious is telling you to do it. So it's I know I'm being vague and I'm covering a lot of topics, but the human, I heard a word on a podcast on Saturday before we jumped on Friendly Differences, and it was incrementalist. And I think that's the word I'm searching for, because the human brain and mind, whatever, we are made up of percentages of lots of things. So this is why I talk about spanking is bad in my view, because it might not turn someone into a domestic abuser, but there's a percent that's there because they were spanked, and 90% of children that are spanked won't end up being a domestic abuser. But that 10%, if you interviewed those, they probably were spanked. And that's how little and how much it can affect us and make a difference.
Yeah, but okay. Hold on. Let me read some of these comments. Brina says, my son was technically diagnosed with ADHD, but I refused to put my son on medication. Just to be easy for educators. Ninja says ADHD is a real diagnosis, especially in adults. ADHD is more diagnosed now. I'm on medication for it, and I'm able to manage my symptoms because of it. Medication hasn't always been a negative thing. Oh, okay. Let's see. Brina says scans support I'm sorry. Ninja Buddy says brain scans support the diagnosis. And Brina says, yep, my son has ADHD. And as long as he's outside playing football or basketball all day, he's good. Not a video game kid at all. Um, Hello, Mr. B. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I mean. It's like, again, growing up, and I was outside constantly. I was outside constantly. The rule was you be in when the street lights came on, but I was outside. And let's see. Yeah, feisty one's here. I was outside with her. We're riding our bikes. We're playing four. Do you all even know what what four square is? I mean, we're up at the school on the you know on the swing sets. I mean, we were all over the place. No video games were not there. Whatever, but we were outside, and you didn't hear about the ADHD and everything. It's like, you know, again, I just think that when people are outside, and even for adults, I say go out and take a walk. One thing I like about having pets is I do have to walk them. I do have to get out. You're getting out of the house. Let's see. I am not sure. Um, uh, Sorry. I thought I read something else. Okay, so but um but does is being spanked as a child going to make you be mentally ill as an adult? And by that 10% compared to the 90%, yes, is 10%, but is that person going to grow up to be mentally ill? I was spanked. I'm sorry. I don't think I'm mentally ill. I don't obsess over people. I don't stalk people on their podcast or anything like that. I don't go out and get guns and go to movie theaters and shoot people. My son was spanked. He wasn't he was spanked. Not a lot, but he was spanked. But my son is a great kid, or grew up to be a very respectful young man. So everybody's not going to turn into this monster.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Everyone's threshold's different, and maybe a better way of saying it is, I believe that s- there is a not a perfect, but a very damn near perfect way to bring up a human being, to know, like a successful way. You can bring up a human being and make them an amazing person. It's like a project. If you look at a human being like a project, you could bring up an amazing human being, and then you can also bring up a monster. You
Mm-hmm.
could you could put it to its room, what is it, solitary confinement. You can beat it, and all those things will affect how that human being turns out in later life. So I'm trying to explain, which is hard. I'm not good at this, but it's like all those things. When you interview a serial killer, when you look into a Jeffrey Dahmer or a John Wayne Gacy, you'll see patterns in each one of those. Like I said this to my wife. She's into all that. She likes to listen to a podcast called Last Podcast on the Left, and they have like a dark humor, comedic way of telling the story about John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer's. And I'm not into that, but I did listen to the odd podcast with her, and I said to her, I guarantee that some of these serial killers, if not them all, have had parents that have hated each other, like either brought up by a single parent, or had abusive parents, or the parents have been abusive to one another. So we stick on Jeffrey Dahmer, and the first opening paragraph was that Jeffrey Dahmer's mom was bedridden, and the dad would beat the mom, and all this stuff, and Jeffrey would sit and watch, and I mean, that, I know that's extreme, and that is, you've just said you were beaten as a child and you didn't turn out like that, but
Oh, hold on,
the
hold on. I did not say
consistency.
I was beaten. I was not beaten as a child. Beaten
No,
and,
no,
and,
no, no,
and, and
yeah.
spanked. No, no,
Yeah.
no. You have to get that straight, because there's a
Okay.
difference between being beat and there's a difference
Yeah.
between being spanked. And I think that's
Yeah.
where you're getting the whole thing. A spanking and a beating is not the same thing. My parents did not beat me, and I did not beat my son.
Yeah, I didn't mean it. I was just
I
ranting
just
on,
wanted
but
to. I
the
just wanted
yeah,
to
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
correct that. I needed to correct
But
that.
yeah, but to a young kid, it's the same thing. A beating, they don't understand that it's just a beating. They think,
I
like,
think
I'm talking
children.
about.
I think children know a difference between a beating and a spanking, because I have seen kids get beat. I have
I think
literally
at a
seen
certain age
kings.
they will, but at the same time, what they do is they go to their bedrooms and think, my mummy and daddy don't love me. How can they love me if they hit me? A lot
Well,
of them
see, but
do.
see, that's where I disagree, because you also. I
Well, that's
mean,
what I thought. That's
well,
what I
well,
thought.
I mean, but okay, but I don't think every child thinks that. Because
No,
I do believe that children want and crave discipline. I think that
no,
when they see that friend who is always, oh, well, they can go and do whatever they want, and their parents are not paying attention to them, and their parents are not saying, you know, come in this house and do your homework. Instead, they're roaming around. I think that they are jealous, and they're looking at that other kid and they see that, their parent must care enough about them, that they are going to discipline them. Not all, but I do believe that children, for the most part, crave discipline, because discipline is also structure. And you also have those kids who grew up in homes where their parents never spanked, beat, whatever, and they grow up to be these horrible people. So it
mm,
goes both ways. I mean, because you really don't know. And Bob, we've also said, how can you have two people who grew up in the same household, have access to the same things? Both parents are hugging and kissing and whatever, or both parents are yelling, screaming, beating. One person turns out this way, the other
mm,
kid turns out that way. So how does that happen?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's different types of thresholds and also other outside influences. Maybe one of the children was older and had different friends and was into different, music and influences and things. There's a lot of things, and as I say, there are probably kids that have been beaten and were properly beaten and all that, and it's made them better people. They've maybe became withdrawn and like shy, and then they've just knuckled down and became a successful person. I don't know. This is not an exact science, but what I do know is that these things do shape these people. Like people who are not confident are people who have not been given any compliments as a kid and been given negative comments all their lives. It's correlation. It's what they've seen makes them. We are just parrots. We're just a mirror image of what we have seen and been told.
Okay.
Um, and again, like back to the thing about the kids, when a kid gets spanked or beaten, whatever, they go to the room, and I'm sure you've heard. I remember sitting there going, I'm going to run away because they won't even miss me. It's like the typical stereotypical thing you see it in movies of the kid sitting in the room going, I'm going to run away or pack my bags. It's how children feel because they don't understand. And I'm talking about a young age. I'm talking about probably less than 12, 13 years of age when they're still in single figures. They don't understand what they see or realize is that that their parents are hitting them, being violent to them. And instead, I believe in sitting your kids down and explaining why they're wrong. Don't touch that because if you touch that, you'll get burned, or explain to them rather than hitting them. And yeah.
I mean, no, I mean, and I understand that, Crucible. I am coming to you. I want to read what Mr. A said. He says, "I was beat as a child, and I think it made me mean and violent, but I never wanted to shoot up a crowded place." And then Brina says, "Yeah, I noticed my son craves structure." Um, I mean, it can go either way, but I know when I threatened to run away, and I was out the door, halfway down the street, and my mother, came out, and and I'm literally yelling at her, when she was on the phone, that I was running away, um, because she would not let me do something that I wanted to do. And I'm yelling, screaming at her. I'm running away. Do you hear me? I'm walking out the door, whatever. And I walk out the door, and I slam the door, and I'm halfway down the street. My mother comes out, and she looks at me, and she says to me, "Don't you ever interrupt me while I'm on the phone." And when I think about that now, I start laughing because one of the rules were, we don't interrupt. If you're on the phone, I mean, even when my sister and I were old enough where we were getting calls and stuff, it's like you don't, unless it's life or death, you don't interrupt when I'm on the phone. So when we got back into the house, my mother's like, "So you're running away? Why?" And because she wouldn't let me do something. It was something really silly. I had not gotten spanked or anything, but she would not let me do something. So yeah, kids threaten to run away. Kids threaten that all the time, but they're not going anywhere. You know, and I do believe that kids do sit in their room and say, "I hate her. I hate him. My mother did this. My father did that." They're kids. They're going to do that all the way up until they leave your house. They're going to not like you for something. You don't let them go to that concert. You don't give them the keys to the car. You don't buy them a car. Your kid is going to say, "I hate you." Not all of them, but they will. But anyway, Crucible, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to go back real quick to the spankings and the quote unquote beatings. Boss stole a little bit of my thunder. I agree with everything he said. I also agree with you, Solid. I believe children know the difference between a spanking and a beating. They are two very different things. There's probably very different language used during a spanking versus a beating, and kids come to know the difference. So where it really starts, and Bob makes a really good point, and you've made a good point, is very early on you have a communication with your kids. If you have the right communication with your kids, I'm not saying you'll never have to spank them, but a lot of times once you've established order, structure, expectations, discipline, even the worst of kids will respond to that if it's applied genuinely, kindly, and consistently. And the message gets sent like your mother did. You do not interrupt me when I'm on the phone. Kids will pay attention to that. If the message is consistently reinforced and it's done in a humane way, kids will learn. And sometimes all you have to do, remember back in the day, wait till your father gets home. Most of the time, at least in my situation, my father didn't have to touch us. The threat alone was enough to make us go, oh, we better get our stuff together here. So I'm not saying that spankings aren't effective. They are. Every once in a while, as you like to say, Solid, you need to tap that bottom. You need to make sure that they know you're serious. Because if you continue to make these threats about you're going to get a spanking, wait till your father comes home, and nothing ever happens, kids pick up on that too. So every once in a while, you have to deliver on your promises and make sure the message is being received. Eventually, if you're doing it right, you won't need to not only spank your kids, but you won't need to threaten to spank them either. Every kid, like you say, every kid goes through periods. They're sitting in the room. I hate my parents. I'm running away, so on and so forth. But if you're constantly communicating with your kids, and I'm not talking about mental health here. I know we started the show with mental health. That's a different ballgame altogether. Those people need help, and we can't apply what we're saying here to them. But everybody else, I think there's a role for spankings, not beatings, because those are very different things. There's a role for spankings, but if you're communicating correctly and effectively and consistently with your child, the spanking thing, I really do think, takes a back seat, and kids realize that this is not the way to live. This is not the way to behave. I want to be allies with my parents. I don't want to be enemies with them. And they understand where right and wrong, where the lines are drawn, and pretty soon the spanking issue, I think, becomes moot.
You know what though? I mean, and I agree, but I'm going to say I agree up to a point, because there are some children, not all, but there are some children who will take advantage of my mom's just gonna, I'm sorry, hold on for a second. Every kid needs that fear, and she LOL, and that oh shit feeling. Brina, exactly, because you have some kids who will take advantage of, if I do this or I do this, all my parents are going to do is I'm just have to sit and listen to them talk, blah 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 blah. It goes in one ear and out the other, because I know when I got to the point where I wasn't being spanked and I was doing something, and my mother, she's talking to me, or if she's yelling at me, or even we're sitting down just talking, it goes in one ear, out the other. All I heard was blah 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 blah. And for some kids, if you're consistently doing that, and they know that that's all they're going to get, then they're going to do it. But if they know that you may get a spanking, not a beating, you're going to get a spanking, and that oh shit feeling comes up, then they will stop. And like I said, my son had a habit of running from me when he was little. And you tell him, don't do that. You'll get hit by a car. You'll do this. I don't want to scare him with, the boogeyman's going to come and take you, whatever. But we had those conversations too. He kept doing it. It wasn't until I spanked him, it stopped. It immediately stopped. He was stuck to me like glue. So there are times when you can be and talking nice and don't do this and okay and don't do this, whatever. There are times when that spanking is that reinforcement and it stops. So, Ba?
I mean, I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree.
No, and that's fine. But I do want to swing back. I want to get away from the disciplining of the children. I know that I took it there, but I would like to know if that is going to, cause someone to just, totally just go postal, and I would like to get into the question of, if a person changes their appearance or name to gain admittance to consistently be around someone, is that mental illness?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I
Um,
mean, is it? I mean, if you are, you know, you know, you're doing whatever you can, to just be in this person's life, but you can't be yourself for whatever reason, whether you're a coward or whether you're shy, whatever. But if you're constantly
mhm.
changing your name or appearance to consistently be around someone, is that mental illness, or are you just crazy?
it's 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 an element of mental illness. Like there are, like I say, there are behaviors that are learned when we're young that stay with us, like jealousy and um, jealousy is the main one that I can think about. But like these are learned behaviors that we only ourselves can like kind of break free of by maybe a self journey about like learning about yourself and all that. But it's not in the realms of mental ill, like where I'm thinking like the straight jacket type people. But these are societal behaviors that we all have small elements of.
Hmm.
um but yeah, it's yeah.
Okay, and I just want to read what Brina said. She says, "My son got a talking to if he disrespected his teacher, but he got a pow pow when he was throwing rocks at moving cars. It just depends on the situation." Um,
Mhm.
and then that guy says, "There was a time humans just crap as they walked." I don't understand that. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry, that guy. I don't understand what that means. Could you be more specific? In
can
high
i can
school,
i
being
maybe
bad at science was just called failing.
Can I maybe jump on that? Something that Brina said that
Yeah,
would
yeah.
maybe that you guys could maybe elaborate on for me, because this is something that I think we've spoke about this before, using the analogy of maybe gay people in 1901 and then versus 2001. It was the ADHD thing. You said that there was none of this. There was not a thing called ADHD when you were young. So can I ask yourself in Crucible why you think there is now ADHD?
Again, By you make it sound like I was born in 1910.
Sorry, sorry.
you know, so again, I think that I do think that medication plays into, but I think that the world is just vastly different. The world is vastly different from 1600, 1700. I mean, 1800 was different from 1850. I mean, the world just consistently changing, and now there's just so much out there. There's so much out there to tease the person's brain, or if you're, or kids, even kids today that you hang around with, to me they're just different. They're not like, the kids that are out here today, that kids are playing with, whatever. To me, they're just not the same as the kids that I grew up with and that I played with.
Yeah, yeah, but can you be more? I mean, I don't know. I'm having to think as well. But
I
can
mean,
you
I mean,
try and
I,
be
I
a
mean,
bit more
I think
specific?
social media plays into it. I mean, I think there's just so much. I mean, you have computers, you have cell phones, you have all this stuff that again is keeping people inside, as
Yeah,
opposed
but
to
we're talking
going.
about like
Well, I
three,
also
4 year olds with ADHD, 2, 3, 4 year olds.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I have a theory on that, if I might jump in here.
go
And this is
ahead.
this is completely anecdotal. I have no science to back this up. This is just sort of a chronology that I look back. As you were saying, Solid, I completely agree with you. I think kids are different today. My my theory would be, and this is anybody can be free to throw stones at me and disagree because I can't back this up with science or even dates or chronology. But it seems to me, back maybe in the '80s, when more and more women were leaving the household to work outside the household. That really became a thing, probably in the late '70s and the '80s, and it just accelerated. my theory is then you don't have a mother raising kids on a daily basis, talking to them, communicating with them, being there every single day like we had it when we were growing up in the 60s and the 70s. So now the television is babysitting, the daycare people are babysitting, the babysitter is babysitting, and you're now having Ritalin and Adderall. Those things didn't exist when we were kids. I didn't know that. It may have happened, but we did not have any kids that I'm aware of that were taking Adderall or Ritalin or had attention deficit disorder. You would notice that in the behavior of your friends. You would notice something off. And I don't recall anybody not only acting that way, but our friends not even talking about, well, you're so-and-so. And that doesn't mean we didn't have weird friends or weird kids back then, but they didn't have behavioral disorders like they do now. So again, this is completely anecdotal, but I think when mothers began to spend less and less time on a daily basis with their children and relied on medication to solve the problem instead of, the old-fashioned parenting, I think that's when the wheels started to come off. And then social media piled on, and everything that came with that just exacerbated the situation. I could be 100% wrong, but I think it's at least worth considering.
Well, I'm going to push back mainly on the whole women thing because again,
Well, don't forget, I'm not blaming women.
But every other word was women were out of the household and women were doing this and women
they're
were
the
doing
primary.
that.
They're the primary child raisers.
Hold on, though, because as we've had a conversation, you can be in a 2-parent household and feel like a single parent because it's usually one person that checks out or one person who says go to your mom, go to your mom. I grew up in a household where my mother was not a stay-at-home mom. My mother was working from day one. She was not a stay-at-home mom. And we managed to, we like I said, my sister and I, we grew up fine. And not only did we grow up fine, we went on the family vacations and we did all that other stuff, with mothers working outside the household, once again, it seems like that again, the mothers are supposed to be the ones to rear them, but yet these same people will say, you need a father in the house. You need a father in the house. Well, what the hell is a father doing if the mother's supposed to be the one rearing everyone? I'm just saying that children did grow up with both parents working and they came out fine.
So do you not believe that a mother not being there would have zero effect on that child's upbringing and behavior?
I think a mother not being there, a father not being there, but do I think they need to be there 24/7? No. Do I think that a mother has to be a stay-at-home mom in order for that child to feel love and to feel nurtured? No, I do not.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of parents out there and they grew up with 2 parents working, parents out of the household who had careers, and they came out fine. And I can.
Well, solid. Let me ask you a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Bob, but in the absence of a more plausible theory, you really haven't advanced. Bob asked the question. So, what is the cause? It can't be social media. Social media has only been about 10, 15 years old.
You're right.
This started back in the 80s. So, if you don't believe, well, wait, let me finish. If you don't believe Bob's supposition and mine, then there must be a plausible theory that you have instead. What would it be?
I don't know what it is, but like you said, that you're not a scientist, whatever. I don't know. I think that right now there's just so much out there. There is so much out there, that could contribute to it. But I'm just saying, just to say mothers leaving, I'm just saying, yeah, that could very well be a cause. But did it affect everyone? No, because you still have people out there who still thrived with both parents working. And you guys make it sound like that every mother who ever worked.
No.
Hold on, because that's the way it feel like that. That's the way it came across to me. It came
Yeah.
across to me with
Well,
every mother, whoever worked, their child was going
no,
to
no,
grow up with, oh my God, and that's not true.
no. See, that's what I've been trying to jump in and say is you're jumping to the defense of mothers when the me in Crucible, I may be talking for Crucible, forget if I'm wrong, then correct me. We're not attacking the mothers, but we're pointing out that this is now a societal thing where women have to go to work now. So it's not their fault. In most cases, it's not their fault. They're forced to go to work. So it does sound, this is the breakdown in a lot of arguments, political and societal arguments, is that it sounds like people on the right or conservatives or people like me are attacking
I'm
a
not. It's
certain
not even
group.
a conservative, Bob. Please don't bring
Well,
in. Please,
no,
please,
no.
no. Seriously, don't bring politics in, because it's, to
Well,
me,
okay,
it's
okay,
not
we'll leave
a
it.
conservative or a left view. To me,
No, but this is
I'm
why we
just.
are misheard, because it sounds like I'll talk for myself. I am being what is it? What, you're not really understanding me. It sounds as if I'm attacking. But what I'm really doing is I'm attacking the way the world is, not attacking mums. I hate that the world is shaped around that two parents have to go to work now. And even then, we still live paycheck to paycheck. So we should all be on that side. Everyone here in this whole room, in this whole world, should agree with me there. It's horrible that both parents have to go to work nowadays. And anyone that disagrees with me there, you need to take a look at yourselves. So when I say something like I just said, and you jump in on the defense of women, it's like,
I was
solid. You
on the
don't need to
defense
do that
of.
because
No,
we're not attacking women.
I was on the defense of women, because every other word seemed to be where, as soon as the mother, the mother, the mother.
Yeah.
That is why I said that. But at the same time, but I understand what you're saying. I do understand. Okay, I do understand. I can comprehend that. I understand what Crucible is saying. I am just saying that there are children who grew up in households where both parents worked, who did not have that mother who was there all day long, and they came out fine. And when you think about it,
Yeah, but fine.
they did not come out. Put it like this. I grew up with a whole slew of friends whose parents worked outside of the household. My friends now are doctors, lawyers, whatever, and they are just fine. And
But Sally, we're talking about what the ADHD and the thing that Bob brought up originally. That didn't exist back when we were growing up. We're talking about what happened post that.
but you're saying ADHD did not exist. Maybe it did, but it wasn't called ADHD.
I completely agree with you. I think that's 100% true.
So you had mental illness back in the 1600. I mean, mental illness has been around forever. Okay, now it's just now, as we've gotten more into a modern society, we're putting labels on it. So that kid in school very well could have been ADHD. The kid who just couldn't sit still probably had ADHD. But Ritalin and all these other drugs were not out there. Usually, that kid who was running around and just couldn't sit still was sent to the principal's office and had to sit there until their mother and father came to pick them up. So yeah, I do think that all of that stuff was there. We just didn't know what to call it. So I mean, okay, let me read some of these comments. Brina says kids being placed on narcotics seems wrong. I'm not with it unless there's a physical danger to themselves or others. Feisty One says the kids that were really bad were few and far between, and everyone knew who they were. You were told to stay away from their bad butts. Feisty One, yep. Okay. That guy says that's the trick. People who come from money get a stay at home mom. I'm assuming you're referring. Okay. And Crazy says I don't. Crazy Train says I don't believe one parent households are a problem. That guy says most people don't come from money. Crazy says long before that. That guy says I'm a rocket surgeon. Too many variables. Crazy train. You are correct. There are a lot. Yes, these men are passing me off. Deb, I don't know what you mean by that. Crucible says not just mothers working, but easy access to medication. That's how the problem was addressed. Okay, but is it the mothers who are going to get the? I mean,
No, I blame doctors a lot too for this, Sal. I mean, mothers, parents, they're having behavioral issues with their kids, and they took them to the doctor, or they took them to where they were told to take them. What should I do with my child? They're not doctors or nurses. So the doctor says, well, this new medication came out. It's called Ritalin or Adderall, whatever it was back then. And we have found, tests have shown, blah, blah, blah. And the mother or the father or the parent are going to say, okay, well, we don't know what to do anymore. We're kind of at the point where we're going to throw our hands up. We trust the doctor. And they started handing out these prescriptions like penny candy, and it became the go-to way of solving the problem. And when everybody's on it, you kind of get this whole herd mentality. Well, my so-and-so's neighbor's on it, and his kid's on it, and her kid's on it, and his kid's on it. So all of a sudden, that became a cultural norm. So I don't fault parents necessarily for taking the advice of doctors. Doctors have a role in this thing too.
yes, but I mean, but at the same time, I don't think it was like, come on, Johnny, I'm dragging you to the doctor because I want that magic pill. You know, again, I think that children, and like Feisty one said, we were told if you had that kid that was running around, whatever, we were told stay away from that person. And again, that kid, he probably had what is now known as ADHD. So again, I just think that all these problems have always been around. We just have labels for them. So that's just me. So, again, I understand what you all were saying. I was just pointing out a fact that you have children who grow up with parents who are with the mom who is at home, and they turn out fine. You have children who grow up with both parents who are out of the home, and they turn out fine. So that's all I'm saying. Ba?
No, well, what about on the flip side? You have people spending life behind bars for murder, who were beaten, had one parent, and yeah. What about that? What would you say to that?
I would say that I think that's sad, and I would look at when you look at people who turn out like that. Why?
Yeah. Well,
Why?
exactly.
Because
Yeah,
why? Because but at the same time, it's like, just because, put it like this. It's not so much as saying that these people turn out to be murderers and rapists, what have you, because you have a lot of people who turn out to be murderers and rapists in two-parent families who can't afford a good attorney to get them off. But let's take that out. Okay. I just don't like it where people will automatically assume that just because you come from this single parent household, or if the mom worked, that it's automatically or going to be this doom and gloom. That's what I'm pushing back on. I'm pushing back on that, because again, there are a lot of single parents out there who work damn hard, who have put their kids through school, and who have done a damn good job. And that is what I'm pushing back on.
And I think there's exceptions to everything, Sal. But I think if you look, and I know you and I have gone back and forth about the merits of data and statistics, but sure, there's exceptions to everything. And you can point out, yeah, there were people who turned out just fine, so on and so forth. But if you look broadly and at the data, you'll find that single parent households, however they came to be, whether it's through divorce or death or something else, overwhelmingly kids do much more poorly in school. They have difficulty forming friendships. There are just a litany of things that accrue to them based on their single parent household status. So I'm not doubting you have anecdotal evidence to support your position there, but statistically speaking, the chances of a child failing academically and in other areas of his life are overwhelmingly high, given the fact that they're only growing up. I'm just going off of statistics and data, that's all.
Okay. And Crazy Train says, I'm good. I had one parent who worked two jobs. And Woody Bush says, I'm 35. I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD. You were diagnosed when you were 30. I'm assuming that's what you're saying. But I definitely grew up with it. So again, I'm throwing this back to mental illness. Are all these kids or people, teens and adults, whatever, is all this going to make them become mentally ill per se? What is mental illness, or does it make them crazy?
Can I ask a different question, Solid, kind of along those same lines?
About mental illness?
Yes, mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anybody who has a TV these days can see that there are, and I'm not complaining about it. I think it's a terrific thing. You have almost every other commercial has something to do, whether it's the radio or TV, about mental health today and medication and seeking help, and there shouldn't be a stigma about it. I mean, I watching some videos on TikTok and whatnot, and the comedians making fun, going, I just found out I had mental illness. You know how I found out? I watched a television commercial and they told me I was mentally ill. So there's a double-edged sword here going on here. There's a ubiquity with mental illness that seems to be prevalent that we didn't have in the past. People are talking about it. People are taking it seriously. But do you think it's possible that with so much coverage of it and so much effort to destigmatize it, do you think people can be lulled into believing they're mentally ill because it seems to be such a hot topic these days? Is there a self-fulfilling prophecy to it? I think it's important to destigmatize it, but I wonder sometimes if we're feeding into it just a little bit by talking about it so much, and people start to wonder, well, of course I'm mentally ill. Everybody's mentally ill. And I don't know if that's necessarily helpful. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it does. And I think that is possible. And that's why I say, I think that people who, going back to the whole ADHD thing, whatever, I think that it's always been there. It's just that there are things you just did not talk about. Back in the day, there were just things, you just did not talk about. Now, and again, I'm changing the subject again. If a girl got raped or if a boy, was abused or raped by his priest, you did not talk about it, but it happened. Now, we live in a society where everybody's talking about everything. Does it mean that we have more of it? No, it just means that people are now more willing to come out and say that this is what it is. So, Crucible, what you saying is the fact that, and you're right, every other commercial is like, okay, you take this and with this and this will help you do that. People are probably sitting there self-diagnosing themselves, saying, well, yeah, I may be a little crazy, or yeah, I may have this infection, or yeah, my son did do that, so maybe let me go run to the doctor, do that, or my husband, yeah, he needs that, So yeah, I do believe that we're inundated with all of this stuff, and we're sitting around going, well, is it me? Do I have it? Whatever. Of course. Do I believe that we've always had it? Yep. Bye.
Chill Will's on the panel, by the way. I don't know.
Oh, Chill, I am sorry. I did not see you. Chill, can you start talking? Because you did not. I didn't see you, so you're gonna have to start talking for you to pop up. I am very sorry. Chill, you still there? Or okay? Sorry, I am sorry. Now I see you.
We're gonna have to fix your Wi-Fi. Listen,
It's not my Wi-Fi. It's Podbean.
Definitely your Wi-Fi. Definitely your Wi-Fi.
It could be that little boy spreading butter all over the table. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just sitting. I was just sitting there listening at the point. I didn't have a whole lot to chime in because I was kind of coming in the middle of the conversation.
Okay, so you're reprimanding me for not seeing you, huh? And you don't have anything to say?
Mm-mm. Long ago,
Oh boy.
and oh so far away.
Okay, that guy
Famous song.
says, my therapist told me ADHD people need immediate consequences for discipline to work. Petty Deb says narcotics are not given to kids for ADHD. Crazy, you're saying just crazy. I know it was about something that either I said or Crispo or Boss said, so I'm not sure what you're
Oh,
referring to.
Charlotte,
Yeah,
I do have something to say. I don't think,
what do
like
you have to
your
say?
reference to ADHD kids, I think that is, I don't think our traditional ways of schooling in general is important. I don't think it comes in really important when they don't have supervision right. You got to work. They got to go. Somebody else got to watch them. I think that's the biggest problem. Is our school system? It was not necessarily the kids because the ask a fucking I mean, to ask a child that's 8, I don't know, 7, just to sit there for 2 hours and concentrate, like that's ridiculous in itself. I mean, we want to teach them, but goodness, that's some difficult stuff. And so, and when they don't do that, or they want to like just, I don't know, necessarily not be bad, but just overactive. Why does it? We have to dub them, dub a problem out of that. There's a thin line. So just the concentration, the way they may learn different. It may not be through books. It may be through visual. It might be anecdotal. It's just people learn different.
Yeah.
And so, that's the problem I have with all of that because you might not even really have a problem. You're just different.
And chill, you make a good point, because the bottom line is people are different. People respond and do things different ways, whatever, except for that little boy with the butter. But anyway, um, let's see. That guy says most people subconsciously make the same decisions their parents did. I do agree with that. That guy, those decisions kept them alive. Brina says, Petty Deb, what is she referring to? Adderall is one of the medications offered and is a narcotic. Um, I refuse to turn my son into a zombie to make teachers' jobs easier. And you know what? And Brina, I will say, and because this was true, back in the 80s, when Adderall and ADHD and all that stuff started popping up, whatever, a lot of it was as soon as the kid was acting up in school or that child could not sit still, it was usually the teacher who referred the child to the school nurse, who would say, well, yeah, you need to have your child checked and they could have ADHD, whatever. And then they would put the kid on drugs, just to, or medication, just so the teacher, you're absolutely right. So the teacher's job would be easier.
How
So,
do they test for that? How do they test for that? Like they shouldn't. This is like is there like a sit down test or what is a chemical imbalance test? How do they test for that?
I don't know. I don't see Woody Bush, come on up. And Crazy, did you want to come up? Because I did send you an invite earlier. So that could be what you saw. But if you want to come up, you are more than welcome to come up. And Angie says methylphenate is one. So okay. So
There's
Chill, can I
stimulants, but I'm
pass
not.
the hold on, Woody. Chill, do you have anything else to say? Can I pass the mic to Woody?
I mean, yeah, no, I would just ask. I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that question. Who,
Yeah,
how is the series of tests required to establish you have ADHD? Is
Okay.
it like a dyslexia type test, or I don't know? Who knows?
Okay. Woody, welcome.
hey guys. No, I just a couple of things. The testing, I don't know exactly how they do it with kids, but it's mostly just a series of questions in my experience. Um, and I mean, like I said, it's all changed. When I was a kid, that didn't exist. Now, nowadays they're blaming
Wait. So
that on
you're
everything.
saying a series of questions. So what the doctor's just saying, well, can you sit still? No. Well, do you run around the classroom? Yes. Are you talking about questions like that?
Essentially a little different for as an adult, but I don't know exactly what they do for kids though. But I don't think it's a whole lot different. And I think it could be more intrinsic, to be honest with you.
Now, are you the one who said that you were, or was that guy? Who were you the one who said that you were that diagnosed with ADHD?
Yeah,
Okay, so what
yeah, 30.
questions did they ask, if I may ask?
Um, honestly, for me, it wasn't even, they didn't really ask much. I just was struggling with a bunch of things, and she kind of pieced it all together and said, like, if this is what you're telling me, this is what you're experiencing, this is what you're dealing with, this is what you have, basically. And it kind of all added up. And, for me as a kid, I was very active, and I did a lot of high adrenaline sports and stuff like that. But as a parent, once I had my kid, that had to go to the wayside, and focus more on just working all the time. And that's where the struggle sort of really began for me, because I had no outlet, um, or no other avenue to get that stimulation needed for my brain to work and function properly, right? But
But
I wouldn't put my kid on that shit as a kid, like
but
give him a
Woody,
fucking
would you
a tool
ever
out.
did you ever think, Woody, during any of that, did you ever feel that you would want to go and harm someone?
No,
Okay.
I missed that. I must have missed that part. Sorry.
Okay. No, because we were talking about, with mental illness and people harming someone, like shooting someone or whatever.
No, no.
Yeah. So okay.
I no, that's totally different. I mean, I've struggled with depression my whole life and had thoughts of harming myself, but not anything else. No.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We had our troll in here, I see. Okay. I'm sorry. We have I have a troll, or I prefer to use the word parasite. Um, okay, so that guy says a study recently came out that kids who were popular at age 13 tend to have it harder in life. Examples being greater incarceration rates, dysfunction relationships, and poor work history. Okay, so you're agreeing with Crucible and Ba. After I got done watch, I began to wonder if popular kids are cursed. After I got done watch. Oh, after I got done watching, I'm sorry, popular kids are cursed. Um, Crucible, absolutely, they can be, and it's also used as an excuse now. Okay, Weebridge said we've talked about this before. I think are used to be the ones. Wait, hold on. We've talked about this before. I think are used to you were a shitty parent if you had a shitty kid, but now they can blame it on a lot of shit. Yeah, yeah. Woody also says people try to pay teachers. Performance is not the teacher's fault. Their kid is a walking disaster area. And Brina says my son cannot sit still. Not he's not he's smart as hell. Kids learn differently. Yep, I'm drugging my my kid up. They got through different assessments. Okay, let's see. And Brina says, Angie, they made my son answer questions while he danced around the office and climbed on chairs. I knew he had ADHD already, but he's smart as hell. And Brina is saying, what I was trying to explain, that the kids who could not sit still have always been there. They've always been around there. It was always, that kid or two or three who were always just up. They were always just they're always just going, like the Energizer Bunny. You all remember the Energizer Bunny? They were always just there. But you know, now we just have a word for it. So
And a drug to give them instead of an outlet to get that energy out,
yes, and this is
right?
and okay. Let me ask Bob, you may have an answer to this, but I'm gonna go to Crucible for this. Do you think that the fact that in a lot of schools now, when I grew up, like I said before, we had gym or PE, whatever you want to call it now. We called it gym class, whatever. Um, and even when before I got to high school, we had recess, not just recess, but we had a period where the teacher would take us out and we would stretch and we would do all this stuff. And, we would have organized games like volleyball and what have you. We were getting energy out. So when we went back into the classroom, kind of stinky, but for the rest of the day, we weren't amped up. So Crucible, let me ask you, do you think that could have something to do with it? Because around the 80s, when they started cutting a lot of the school programs, and then more into the 90s, where now to even have band or anything is like not there. Do you think that has something to do with all these kids who are running around with quote unquote ADHD?
Well, I think we were definitely more active. Years ago, you would drive through neighborhoods and you would see fields filled with little league teams as far as the eye could see. There were volleyball leagues, there were softball leagues. Kids did a lot more outdoor activities then, and it contributed to their better mental health. It contributed to higher levels of vitamin D, just general mental health in general. But I think the opposite is true today. I think kids don't get out and get active. And I'm not saying that's the source of ADHD. ADHD is one of the most common, and by the way, it cannot be cured. It can be treated, but it cannot be cured. And it's a difficulty concentrating, learning, focusing. I don't know that physical activity by itself is a remedy for that, although I think it certainly helps. I think a lot of the things we've been talking about are why there's been so much ADHD diagnosis. And I agree with what you said, Solid, and somebody else typed it in the chat. We've had versions of this around for a long time. It was just treated differently and looked at differently and probably stigmatized differently. So we're definitely coming out of the dark ages there, but I don't know that I could necessarily correlate. I'm not a doctor or a psychologist. I believe physical activity helps. I believe there's a fraction of it that goes on today than when we were kids, but I think it's a mental disorder. It's not a disease, but it is a mental illness. And unless you can correlate pretty closely the relationship between physical activity and mental disorders or whatnot, I don't know that I could go there. But I do think kids are being at a disadvantage today. They're at a disadvantage today by the lack of physical activity. Recess, all those things were very healthy outlets for kids to be kids. And now I'm not quite sure kids can be kids in the sense that we were able to be.
And that is and because I think that makes a difference, because again, when I was growing up, where when, like I said, we were out riding our bikes, whatever, kids were outside. Everybody was playing. You went to the park. We did day camp. Even though I hated it, but we were just outside, and in school again, we had those activities where, you had to do something. If you didn't want to do this, then you had to do this, but you had to get up and moving. And again, I know this went from my mentally ill thing to us talking about kids, whatever, but, just, and to prove my point, not even that I'm trying to prove anything, but back when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of overweight kids. You didn't have a lot of overweight kids that were in your class. You may have had one or two, but you didn't have a lot of overweight kids, because we were all always, like I said, a gym class or after school, we're running around or doing something, but now kids at school, all they do is sit all day long, learning to take a test so their school can get more money, and they're overweight. And yes, we can say fast food and everything like that. But again, these kids, by not running around and everything, you're not exercising your mind. So mentally, you're not exercising your brain. So, Bob? Okay, Woody.
I just it's see for me it wasn't just a physical activity thing. It was more of a mental stimulation thing. And for me, I my outlet was like um, adrenaline sports, things that really stimulated me, and that was enough to make me be able to focus on the rest of reality, basically, right? I do agree with the lack of physical activity thing nowadays with kids for sure, but it's yeah, I don't know. It's a different mindset, I guess.
Well, um, um, I'm sorry. I was trying to look at. I missed where I was on the. You guys, I'm sorry. I am trying to get everyone's comments. That guy says the only way to expect lasting change in a broken system is to join it and fix it. I agree. Brina says failure to get to the root cause of these situations is a huge loss. Communication goes a long way. That guy says a study recently came out that kids who were popular at age 13 tend to have it harder at life. Examples being greater incarceration rate. Okay, so I'm sorry. I think I read that already. You know what? I read this the wrong way, actually. You're saying a study came out that kids who were popular at age 13 tend to have it harder in life? Are you saying because of the expectation of being popular? Because you're saying examples being greater incarceration rates, dysfunctional relationships, or poor work history. So, Crucible or Bob, let me go to that. What do you all think about that? He,
I saw that, and I guess I'm wondering what the premise is for that because I've not heard that before. When you're popular at 13, although I have seen, I should let me take that back now a little bit. When I was growing up, we had there were cliques. Excuse me, there were popular kids. And there were kids that weren't very popular. And over time, and I'm talking about up until maybe when we were in our early 20s, and I just lost touch with the people I went to grammar, to grade school with, and high school with, and a lot of the very popular kids, that very thing happened to them. They kind of hit their apex, in high school, and it kind of went downhill from there. So I don't think it's an implausible theory. I don't know how I would correlate it necessarily, but to what I can't read the chat right now, but I do think there is something to that. I can't give you a scientific reason for it, but I do think there is plausible and anecdotal evidence to support, for whatever reason, kids become very, very popular at an early age, and they never are quite able to hang on to it. Whether it was based on something that was very superficial or very shallow or very fleeting, that was only going to be around for a fixed amount of time, or it was something else. But I do think you can make a case to say, for whatever reason, kids who are popular early, they are not able to maintain it for whatever reason.
Woody?
Yeah, I totally agree. And from somebody who grew up on the other side of the spectrum, I was terribly bullied and made fun of as a kid. And it, I look at the people that I grew up with that were popular at that age now, and they've had a lot of struggles different to mine through their life. But I think you're right, and I believe it's because things were so easy for them at that age, and they had this unrealistic expectation of reality that doesn't exist once you get out of school, basically. And it kind of, you know, I dealt with struggles all through school, and that made me a little bit better prepared, I think, for reality of life coming out of it. I guess maybe I don't know.
Okay.
I do agree though.
Bye. You have the mic, but I just want to read what Brina says. She says, I can't keep my son inside. If he has a basketball or a football, he's outside until it is dark. Okay, bye. I am back to you.
Aye. I've just been sitting here trying to think of analogies to kind of back up my point about that we are all made up of what we see and what we've learned as normal behavior in our childhood. Um, I don't know if anyone disagrees with that other than Solid, but the analogy I'm thinking of is like, what do you think of some of these people that mutilate their faces with tattoos and piercings and implants? Because when I look at people like that, I see someone that wasn't loved as a child. That's what I see. They don't love their bodies. They don't love themselves. So they're mutilating themselves. And that's the extreme level. And then a percentage below that would be someone who just has a sleeve tattoo like myself. I've got tattoos. And there is, Crucible mentioned about anecdotal evidence and things. There is evidence to back up this stuff that the people who are in jail now, if you sit them down on the psychiatrist's sofa and listen to what they endured as children, you'll find these patterns that they were brought up by single kids, single parents, or they were beaten, they were bullied at school, and again, all these percentages of things doesn't necessarily make a serial killer, but it can, and that's the point I'm trying to get across. Otherwise, you have to tell me, why does people go and shoot up schools, and why do people go and kill and do all these evil things? Do you believe that people are born destined to be killers? Do you think it's something in their body, in their DNA, in their genes? Because I don't. I really believe it's behavioral. It's learned.
Well, okay, a couple of things. I'm actually doing a show on our people born bad, so I don't want to get too much into that. But I do believe that I'm trying to remember what you said. Okay, and I'm glad you brought up the fact that you had tattoos, because I was going to ask you about your tattoo. So I don't think that people who have tattoos, just dislike themselves. I think that you have people who have tattoos because it is art, and they, for some people, and they just want the art of doing whatever to their bodies. Would I ever get a tattoo? No, I don't want someone drawing on me, or I don't need to have a particular sign on my arm or something to express myself. Me, I express myself through hats and stuff that I wear. For girls, they get boob jobs, and I'm saying girls, because you have girls who are 14, 15 years old, and 16, their parents are, for their 16, 16, their parents have got them boob jobs. I think those are people who probably see that, you're looking and seeing that these models have this, or this is this, whatever, or this particular, person on TV or in the movies, the Kardashians, whatever, they have big boobs and they want it too. You have some women who get breast jobs because of their husbands or their mates, because their husbands or mates want someone with big boobs. And I'm like, if that's the case, then you should have dated someone, like that. But in terms of, I'm sorry, Bob, what was that last part?
I don't know. Just about when you set a serial killer down
Oh,
and you
okay,
find out
okay.
all
So,
about their lives.
okay, but and are people who go in and shoot up schools and stuff, again, I don't think that they're necessarily the fact that they grew up in the single parent home or anything, or that they were not hugged as a child. I think that there are some people who are just mean. I mean, this past Sunday, whenever the Roe versus Wade thing came out, someone rammed their car into a group of pro-choice people who were protesting. To me, that's not, you got spanked as a child or you grew up with a single parent. To me, that was just evil. I mean, I think that was just mean. I think that there are some people who are just mean. That no matter where you come from, no matter what walks of life that you've come through, because it has shown that, again, people who come from these really nice homes, they're just as screwed up as the other person. I do believe that, yes, it could be that they came from a single household, but maybe not. But I do believe that some people are just downright mean.
So where do you think they learned that mean behavior, or do you think it is in their DNA, in their blood, in their genes? Because
I
that's the
mean,
only
I,
two
I mean,
options.
I think, I mean, again, I think that it could be. I think that there are some people that are just bad. Just like that movie, the Bad Seed. It was made in the 50s. You guys should check it out. Every time I watch the movie, I'm shaking my head, because I do believe that there are some people who are just bad, who are just mean. I do believe that if that DNA, it could have jumped a couple of generations landing on you. So I mean, I don't know. Do any of us know? you know um you know whether you're a doctor or a scientist, can you say for sure? I mean, we can have all the data and everything we want to, but then we have this person who grows up in this great home and they've been loved and everything like that. Next thing you know, they're 50 years old, and you find out that the last 20 years they've been burying bodies all across the entire state. So what do you do?
No, I think that's where we've arrived at where we disagree, because I believe when you bring a baby, an innocent pure baby into the world, you can make that baby whatever you want it to be. It's like a dog. Like the pit bull dog gets a bad rap for being nasty and violent, but it's the owner. And that's the same for children. And I know we've already said we don't like comparing children to dogs, but maybe you like that analogy because I know you're a dog lover. It's all about how it's treated, and I don't believe that the DNA thing. I don't think babies are born evil. I think it's learned behavior. So I think that's. I mean, I'm happy with that. And
Okay,
unless
I mean,
proven otherwise,
and that's fine, but but just like dogs, and yes, dogs do get bad reps, and they assume that this dog is this. Back in the 70s, it was the Dobermans, and then in the 80s we had the uh uh starts with the M. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, every generation, it is something else. But I do believe that you have dogs that have been bred a certain way, that they're Crucible. I hear you. That you do have dogs that have been bred a certain way, um, and their puppies turn out to be not good dogs because, like you said, they're because of their owners. I do believe that there are some children who, in their DNA, they're just off, and they're I mean, they just are, and for whatever reason, they are just bad people. I don't believe that all children are born with the I'm in an angel gene. I don't. I was waiting for Bob to respond before I went back to Crucible.
no, I like that. I mean, I think that's the first time we've arrived at the reason why we disagree. So I'm pretty happy with that. At
Okay.
least we know now.
I mean,
I'm happy
and
with
I
that.
could be wrong, but again, that's just what I think.
Yeah, same here. I'm
Okay.
open-minded. If
All right.
everyone was to change my mind about, DNA and genes being bad and people being born and without without a chance, then I'm open to hearing that as well.
And Crucible, I do know that there are some very mean people on the pro-choice side. My point was that that this person drove a car into a group of people. So whether or not that group was pro-choice, whether or not they were pro-life, whatever, the fact that this person took a vehicle and drove a car into a group of people, whomever does it, it is just, to me, that's just hate. So, Crucible, you have the mic.
Yeah, I agree but excuse me, with both you and Bob to a certain extent. I am not a believer in, although I know it happens. You have DNA issues where people's chromosomes or their genetic makeup is just off. I mean, that happens a lot. Maybe not a lot, but it does happen. You've also got things that are more clinical, where you may have a child born with drugs in his system and they never quite get right. But I am also a big believer in its behavior. And I know you're going to do a show on Are People Born Bad, so I'm not going to steal your thunder. But there's that old nature versus nurture argument. I do think behavior is learned, both good and bad behavior. Do genetics play a role? Absolutely. They play a role in everything. But I think if you're in a good environment, if your parents are good, if you surround yourself with good people, and you've got a sense of morality, you will do the right thing. If you don't, you will not do the right thing. So I think environment is much more impactful than anything on the genetic side, because like Boss said, behavior is learned.
Okay. All right. Jill. Jill, you there? Okay, I'm going. Jill. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna read some of these. Welcome, Henny J. Welcome, welcome. Uh, let's see. Who is Felicity Godbelow? All right. So, who are you, Felicity? And they just left. Interesting. We've taken care of that. All right. So, let's see. Did I get to? Okay, I already got all the way down to the end where Crucible says some mean people are on the pro-choice side. By the way. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start wrapping it up then. If anyone else has anything you want to say, Bob, you want to add anything? Instagram filters has distorted. I'm sorry, I'm just reading what Brina said. Instagram filters has distorted reality for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
No, it's just just a reminder. Friendly Differences White Privilege show dropped tonight, so you can go and check that one out. And thanks, Solid, for having me on. This has been a really good show. I'm glad to be back, and this was a topic that I thoroughly enjoyed. And I'm glad that it was productive and we managed to get to why we disagree, which it doesn't happen often, because I think we disagree a lot, but we never know why we disagree. And we've actually tonight got to
No,
why.
I mean, no,
So,
I think that for this, I know why we disagree. You just don't want to accept some of my reasons, and I'm fine, and I'm fine with that, because guys, again, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I mean, I believe what I believe, and other people can believe what they believe. I just don't like going round and round and round, and you never. You're that dog chasing the tail, and he never chases his tail. And it's like, to me, that's just a waste of time. So it's like, if you see that you're never going to come to that medium, then move on. So but I am not trying to change anyone's mind. I'm giving my views. I'm listening to yours. So bye.
awesome. No, I admit I do struggle with that. I struggle when I'm trying to put over my point and give facts and evidence, and when people, and this isn't a dig at all, but it's a common thing with me where I believe people should take facts and evidence on board and pivot with that evidence, because if that evidence is factual and provable, then I don't see how you can't.
And
This is
and
where
again, and now Bob and I are about to get into our back and forth, but I'm just saying that just because you disagree with someone, it doesn't make them wrong. And people have experienced things in life that you never will. And other, and that I never will, doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Just because you weren't there, or it wasn't in the paper or something, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. But
yeah,
again,
but
you said that you
not just
struggle
on
with that,
race,
and I
just
understand that you
every
struggle
issue.
with that, but don't project it on. Again, I am who I am. You either accept me
Yeah.
or you don't, because I have accepted you.
I accept you. I always value your truth. And again, I don't want it to just be about the race thing, because we have disagreements on everything pretty much, and it's the same thing that I struggle with is when you provide facts and evidence, you should be able to pivot. You should, otherwise, I think it's a disservice. I think it's wrong.
Well,
Well, that's just me.
okay, but again, it's a disservice to who, me or whatever. But I mean, but I
Yeah,
mean,
you
but
you
okay,
might be.
but don't worry about me, because I'm fine. I
I
mean, I mean, I
know,
mean,
I know.
and I've also been told that not being able to pivot, that it is dishonest, and I disagree with that, because you can't tell the way that someone's true beliefs, the way they truly believe, is dishonest. But But once again, guys, again, my show, I know we talk about a lot of stuff. We get into the weeds and we talk about stuff that other people, may feel uncomfortable with, and when I started the show, my turn to talk, it was giving everyone a turn to talk. Because again, and I know y'all have heard it before, and I'm gonna say it again, I truly do want to hear what you have to say. I may disagree with you, I may push back, but I am listening to you, and we can get tense and we can get upset and whatever. But at the end of the day, when this show is over, y'all still gonna believe whatever y'all want to believe. I'm still gonna believe what I'm gonna believe, and I'm fine. Like I said, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. If you don't pivot towards me, okay, that is fine. God bless you. So, Bye, you want to respond to that before I go to Crucible?
No, just thanks again for having me on. It's always a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Okay. And let's see. Okay. Let's see. Frankie says this show always entertains. It gets opinions from every. Yeah, it does. Okay, and Woody, thank you very much for coming up on the panel. Crucible.
Yeah, this is a great topic. I think it's overdue in terms of being discussed in the public square. Um, Mental illness is obviously very complicated. It has different degrees to it, different elements to it. It's not a one size fits all thing. But we joke around a little bit about the commercials on TV and the ubiquitous nature of mental illness conversations these days. But there has to be an effort, a concerted effort, and there finally is, to destigmatize it and talk about it, because even though it could lead to more people believing they have mental illness, I think I'd rather err on that side where there's more people being helped and some people being swept up in it along the way. But mental health is real. As they say on these commercials, mental health is health. If you don't have your mental health, it's very difficult to get anything else going in your life. So I think it's a great conversation. People need not feel self-conscious about talking about it. I know people can be self-conscious hearing about it. They don't know what to say. They feel empathy and compassion, but they don't have any practical advice to give, so it makes them uncomfortable. But I don't think discomfort should be a reason not to talk about it. People who have mental health issues have a debilitating issue in their life that makes it very difficult for them to be productive. So the more people talk about it, I think it's a good thing.
Okay. Chill, you there? I'm giving you one last chance to come on. Chill, chill, chill. Are you there? Okay, he must be doing.
Everybody,
Okay, now he is back. Okay, so
I don't have nothing really to say, but good night. Have a great night. Have a blessed good night.
nighty night, chill. Good night. Okay, y'all. So, oh, and also, I know this is shameless, but I'm going to say it anyway. And Bob, if you can back me up on being shameless, I would appreciate it. But Bob, I try to get to 1,000 followers on TikTok, so we can do some live shows on TikTok, and we can't do it until we get to 1,000. So if y'all can go to Friendly Differences and follow, we would appreciate it. It's friendly underscore differences underscore pod. So I know I'm being shameless, but yeah. So,
Yeah.
Bob, you want to be shameless with me, or you just gonna leave me hanging out there being shameless
No,
all
no.
by myself?
It is tough, but we're getting there. I think we're up to 300 and odd. So it's just about making the right type of video and maybe getting some. Uh, is it excerpts is the word for taking out of our Friendly Differences show and putting them up there on TikTok to kind of be a teaser that might pull in some more people. But yeah, we are trying to get to the 1,000 so we can do shows on there. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, but I'm still being shameless. Y'all can follow us. So, so all right, y'all. So, again, thank you guys for coming. I know we went off topic, whatever, but mental illness, is an issue. Even though I do believe that there are some people who are just crazy, and there are some people who are just mean, just mean and just hateful. So, I think they all for me, they all have a separate category. So everyone, thank you for your contributions. Again, Brina and Frankie, thank you very much for the gifts. Much appreciated. And Brina, as this is heartfelt, I hope your son does well. And is Ninja Bunny here? Because I hope she does well. And Woody Bush, for you too. I hope you also do well. So yeah. So guys, that's it. I hope to see you tomorrow. Until that time, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening wherever you are in the world, and go where the wind takes you. Bye. And Chill, thanks for being on the panel. I appreciate you. And I pushed the wrong button, so this song is going to play. So I understand if you guys pop out. And Angie, again, thank you, because I know you said you were an educator. So is there a particular grade that you teach? Do you teach younger kids or older kids? No, you're not a teacher. Okay, I'm sorry. I saw that you were in okay, but I'm involved with them. Okay, all right. And thank you everyone for liking the show. I do appreciate that. I appreciate you all even showing up. I appreciate you showing up. And Crazy Town, thank you for your comments and your input. One day when you're able to pop in on the panel, because you have some interesting things to say. Every time you come on your chat, you have some interesting things to say. At least I think so. And Marina, I'm still waiting for you to come up here, girl. Maybe I should call myself Solid Chill Wilhelmina, and you will come up. Oh boy. But I can't be your baby mama though. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to do that. Oh, you guys are funny. And Angie, you too. I can't be your baby mama either, but I can call myself Solid Chill Wilhelmina. Oh boy. Sweet Wilhelmina. Yes, Sweet Wilhelmina. Hello everyone, it's Sweet Wilhelmina. I'm going to have to write that down so I can remember that, because I might call myself Sweet Wilhelmina tomorrow on my intro. Sweet Wilhelmina. And you just gave me a topic for a fun show. So, see if I can pull it off. I think you should. All right, guys. Thank you very much.